What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Before we dive into it, don't forget we are doing our fabled giveaway. 6,000 subscribers, that's all we got to do by September 5th, and we'll give a box away. 62, we'll give away 2 boxes. So we finally broke our set championship curse. We finally took first place. We finally got the playmat that we all chase after, especially now that there's only one, which I'm still not a very big fan of. I think that they should bring the second one back. But after a bunch of top 4s and top 2s, well, second place, I guess, runner-ups, if you will, and not a whole lot more to show for it other than the cards, that's okay. That's what we go for. We finally got the mat. We broke the curse, and we'll see how it goes moving forward. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about the deck that I had took and why some of the choices, because it's not exactly what you would expect, I guess, in a way. I made some meta calls, if you will. I'm not a huge fan of Tamatoa in the deck. I think it's a great card. I think it's really good. I just think that there's better cards that you can do, and for what it offers in value, I just felt like the deck already kind of does. It didn't really shore up any weaknesses that the deck had. So we're talking Blurple today. You already knew that. You saw the thumbnail. You saw the title. You know me. So we're going to go talk about Blurple. We went 6-1-1. We ID'd round 5. It was actually interesting, though, because while my tiebreakers are really good, I should have been safe, which we were. Second through 9th place were essentially all vying for those 7 spots. First place had it wrapped up. So in IDing, we knew it was going to come down to a risk, which, again, I was pretty well safe because I think my opponent's win percentage by the end of the 5th round is like 61% or something like that. So I was pretty safe, but others were not. And it was just actually kind of interesting to see how it worked out with one match playing out. And it's like, if this player wins, then somebody's getting kicked out. Someone who ID'd is getting kicked out. It was just kind of neat to experience that. But anyway, matchup breakdown. Going over my match record, I was 6-1-1 on the play, which I was on the play round 1, and then top 8 and the finals, I was 3-0. When I was on the draw, or when I was losing the die roll, I was 3-1. My game record overall was 13-7. On the play, I was actually 8-1. The only on the play game I lost was game 1 of the finals. Otherwise, on the play, I won every game that I had done. On the draw, however, I was 5-6, which actually is still not too bad because there's a big advantage to going first in this game, and we were pretty close to 50-50 on the going second aspect of it, while just overwhelmingly going really well going first. So overall, I played 2 Ruby Amethysts, 2 Amethyst Emerald discards, 1 Amber Steel aggro, 1 Yellow Blue aggro, which I think Hero aggro is actually a slept on deck. I said I think it's good enough for a promo, which this opponent ended up going 3-2 and not quite making top 8. So they went 3-2. The Amber Steel aggro that I played against was my finals matchup. So shout out to Chris. Shout out Peter. Played him round 1 and in top 8 with Amethyst Emerald discard. And Ruby Amethyst, I played Kirsten in round 4, I believe. It was super nerve-wracking when they start getting libraries down and have B-prep and they can start controlling the board and sharks and stuff. It got really, really close. I was up pretty big, and I came down to like one turn where if I had it, I had it. If I didn't, she did. So it was insanely close into game 3 there. And then playing against a kind of spicy build in top 4 was our only 2-0 of the entire event. And then there's Phil. Oh, man, when he plays Amber Emerald, the sing-along discard, Under the Sea, Kita, whole mess of a deck. It's interesting. I think the deck is actually really, really strong. I think it's way better than people give it credit for, and it just takes a good pilot to do it. And, well, it does pretty good against Blurple. So we were able to sneak one game in on them. Game 1 wasn't even close. We were never in it. And then game 3, we made a run at it, but really I don't think we were truly in it. I tried to just play aggressive, win before he got to the combo, and got close. But again, I don't think I was ever truly in the driver's seat in that game whatsoever. So overall, too, I did want to kind of talk about some matchups. And I know that Inkdex has their table and you can kind of look at it and it has percentages. And that's all good and great, I guess. This is my personal bias, my personal opinion from playing the deck since, on and off since set 3 when Ben Gibson destroyed me with it at the Stitch Set Championship, and then I started messing with it and putting a little more respect behind it, and then playing it for set 4, and then playing it avidly sets 5, 6, 7, and 8 now. The deck's just really, really fun. I think it's really strong. Purple Steel Tempo and the both Amethyst Emerald decks, whether it's Tempo or Discard, I think these are all pretty solid matchups that you should win more often than not. Emerald Steel Discard, again, another favorable matchup that you should probably win more often than you won't. New this format, Amber Steel Aggro. I actually think that this deck is favored to Blurple. I think on Ink Decks it has it in like a 45-55 in favor of Amber Steel over the sample size. Personally, though, I don't want to say you don't have trouble with it, because that deck can, when that deck hits, guys, that deck hits. Like, no deck can keep up with it at certain curve lines. But overall, especially if you're on the play, I think that Blurple can actually play really well into it. And then also the Red Blue Shark deck. And again, when looking at those percentages, you have to remember that the majority of Blurple decks aren't like, I guess, how I play it. I don't necessarily care for that build that much, but it's tried, it's true, it's proven. It has a astronomical amount of tops. It's one of the top 3 decks of the format. So I'm not here to say that that deck won't work in that style build. I'm just saying I'm not a fan of it personally, and I do better playing a different style of it. So I think Red Blue Shark is actually a favorable matchup. I haven't struggled too much, and again, that doesn't mean you win against these decks all the time. Anytime you can win a bad matchup. It happens all the time. Toss-ups. Red Blue items. This is actually the worst matchup according to Ink Decks, and the other Blurple players who do well that I talk to at our locals, and some Red Blue item players even who have done really well with it, and just other higher players that I know I've talked to, and we all kind of agree that this is probably favored to items slightly, but it's a very, very close matchup, and it is nowhere near the 30-70 split that we've seen on there. I'm not sure what's going on at these other events, or which events get reported, or how any of that works. I don't get it. On Lorcanito, I probably close to 75%, but again, that's small sample size, people testing, buggy, online, random. So I'm not putting a lot of weight behind it. Like I said, it's probably slightly favored in towards the items. And then Ruby Amethyst Evasive. I actually had this as an unfavored matchup, but playing it today, again, I think it's kind of like items where it's slightly favored for Ruby Amethyst. It's a huge battle of who can control the evasives better, who can control, you get the half sharks, the Peter Pans. Peter Pan is insane in this matchup. Getting rid of that, controlling that, keep the rush of the half shark down is very, very critical. Holding your Hades for those as well. Playing locations is huge in this matchup too, because it just applies another layer of difficulty for them to answer for you. And then unfavored matchups, like I said, Phil's deck, Lemon Lime, Discard, Sing Along, Muse's Songs, whatever you want to call it, Key to Under the Sea. This matchup is not friendly towards Blurple. On the play, you can get there. On the draw, you can try. It's not favorable, I don't think, whatsoever. And the thing is, and the good thing for Blurple players is that there's not very many Lemon Lime players out there who are truly really well versed in the deck. And I'm not trying to bash on anyone like that. I'm just saying that I think that if more high level players played it, that deck could arguably be tier 1, and it's in the rogue category. So just kind of by default on that, it shows that the player base just isn't there behind it. But the deck, as far as how good it can be, I think 100% is just incredibly strong. And then Steel Song. No one's surprised here to see Steel Song as a deck that is going to be on the weaker end for the Blurple matchup. So that's kind of how my event went, how my matchups are. Again, that's my personal bias. That is not saying this is how it is. This is the concrete. You're not going to experience this. It's my personal bias from playing the deck pretty avidly for quite a while and just talking with other players. So 60 cards, 10 uninkables, about $175 gets you the entire deck, top to bottom. There's going to be some changes for rotation, though, so if you don't have all the cards, I'm not saying that I would necessarily invest into it, because, well, it's going to be changing quite a bit. The identity of this deck is going to be shifting. So then turn 2 is so important to hit Tipo or your Sail. Most of the time, you're going to want to hit your Sail, but when you are against those more aggressive decks, hitting Tipo Crab on 2-3 is so strong. I've seen many players say, and this is the justification for the popularized build at the moment, that Crab misses the curve. And true, you go to 4 ink for turn 3, so Crab misses the curve. But here's the thing, you usually aren't trying to Crab on 3 anyway. You Crab on 3 when you have Tipo and you are playing into an aggressive matchup. That's when you Crab on 3, or if you're going to like Crab, then you can challenge into something, bounce Crab, play Fox, challenge into something again. Otherwise, Crab's really not a turn 3 card, so I think playing on curve for 3, it's just not a card that you even really try to play on curve. But this card is just way too valuable. Also, another reason that the Ruby Amethyst matchup is more difficult right now is because so many players have cut Crab, although Pan plus Crab, Elsa plus Crab, Genie plus Crab, Iago plus Crab, all of these out a Half Shark, and Half Shark's kind of a good card, so who would have ever thought that maybe playing Crab would be a good idea? I really don't agree with cutting it whatsoever. For Madam M Fox, this card actually, it's good into aggro, but I don't think that rotation's gonna miss this card too much in this deck. Like, it came up a couple times today, but like, it was probably one of the more underwhelming cards in the deck. However, it's one of the cards that I think you have to keep as long as we have access to it. I don't think there's another card that provides what it does. There may be overall better cards, but those better cards help the deck out in areas that the deck doesn't really need the help, whereas Fox helps the deck into areas that it needs the help. So I think that Fox, for that default reason, is going to stay. Peter Pan, I almost didn't play Peter Pan and Iago. That was a actual last night decision. I'm like, there's probably going to be a lot of purple green. There's going to be a few ruby amethysts, and that was 4 of my matchups, so it was a good call on my part. I'm like, you know what? I need to win the evasive battle, and even in the mirror match, winning the evasive battle against, so all amethyst decks, emerald, ruby, and sapphire, any of those amethyst matchups, winning the evasive battle is huge into can you win that matchup. So I ended up pulling out my 2 Diablos because I was just down to 2. I didn't necessarily want to get rid of all the 1-drops, so I'm like, you know what, at 2, it's whatever. I can cut it for the pans. And then I took out one Big Elsa and 2 Cuscos for the 3 Iagos. And would I play 4 or more Peter Pans, like 4 Iago, and would I play more Peter Pans? I don't think right now. The 2-3 was really nice because it's outside of trying to win that evasive battle, they aren't super important. I mean, Peter Pan versus aggro in general, though, is pretty good because you get that down, and then all of a sudden your Genies, your Iagos all have rush, so again, it's just rushing into the aggro deck to be able to win that. It is pretty important as far as that goes. Turn 1 plays. The deck is pretty weak on turn 1, and I think that's why it actually still does pretty solid on the draw, because on the play, on the draw, it doesn't change a whole lot, and on the draw you actually get the extra card for the consistency, so it kind of helps you hit your turn 1 more, because you want to hit Popsicle ideally and then pop it for a Belle and establish that, and if you can, then you can even sing a Friends or something on turn 2, which is just a very good tempo play, and get strong value out of it. So in our 4s, we just got those evasives, the Genie, the Iago, both really important, pretty just fluid with how the deck works. Then finishing off our characters and getting into some of the, I guess not quite getting into it yet, but we will, the spicier cards. So 4 Bells, 4 Elsas, pretty mandatory here. Like Belle moving the damage. I actually had one where I shifted Belle, challenged into something with 3 strength. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I had 6 ink, so then I actually shifted a second Belle, moved the 3 damage from my Belle to another character. And, you know, it's not something that truly comes up very often, but when they have a 3/3 character, you have your 3/3 Belle, you shift your Belle, now you're a 4/4, so you can survive the 3/3 hit, and you shift a second Belle, so now you have no damage, and you took out 2 of their characters. It's a really weird play line, but it worked, and it ended up doing what I needed it to. For Elsa's, you know, whether it's Emerald Steel, Amethyst Emerald, Diablo is such a card that forces an answer, and this deck just answers Diablo like crazy, from Pans to Genies to Iagos to Belles to Elsas to Hades. Like, you have so many answers for Diablo that those Emerald decks just really don't stand a chance. Being a big steel meta, then with how predominant steel is, and even outside of steel, like, what other decks are there? Blurple is insanely popular. There was 6 or 7 of us maybe it was 6. There were 6 or 7 of us Blurple players, however, at our locals today. And guess what? Hades is a very important card in that. Guess what else? Belle and Elsa are very important cards in that. So if you can get an Aurora down, all of a sudden, you take away a lot of their options. They don't get choices anymore. Well, Aurora doesn't have it. Cogsworth has Ward, and the Resist slows down those steel songs. True, it does. But even with Resist, a Zeus still kills your Genie. With Aurora, Zeus can't go after your Genie. Zeus has to go after the Aurora. And guess what? They don't have a whole lot of evasive cards. So now your Genie's going to stick around. You could say, well, it's still a 2-quester, it's still a wasted turn. But at the same time, they have a harder time answering a Genie than they would an Aurora. They answer Aurora much more easily, unless you just don't do anything with her. But then she's not providing as much value to your board anyway. So as far as Cogsworth versus Aurora, I don't think it's even close. I think Aurora blows Cogsworth out of the water. I didn't play very much Steel today, so she didn't really get a time to shine truly. I also didn't have any mirror matches, but it was, like I said, into, well, any Amethyst, like just shutting off Belle's, Elsa's, any Sapphires, shutting off Hades, Rubies. You have Medusa, which is forced to take this out then, which again makes your Genie survive. It makes your Elsa survive. It makes these other cards that you would rather keep survive. And if you get 2 Cogsworth down, great. Resist 2 is awesome. If you get 2 Aurora down, everything has Ward. They can't target anything whatsoever, and all your evasives just roam free now. Feels a little bit stronger. I was going to play 4 Cuscos because red-blue is something that was usually popular. I'm like, you know what, let's just keep locations down. I think some other people are going to play locations, whether it's Blurple, Ruby, Amethyst. I just felt like locations might be something, and then trying to make room, though, for the evasive stuff, because I'm like, you know what, evasive's probably going to be more popular than locations. Cut Cusco down to 2. Twice I did get to use him to remove a location. It felt really strong. The second ability to give the resist never actually came up. And then for Hades is just, Hades is Hades. You're going to want to play 4 of him for sure. Tested Elsa a bunch. Was going to play the 1 copy until I went more on the evasives. I don't think she's necessarily the play. So many times you get to 7 so fast, and then depending on where you're at, hand size wise, ink wise, matchup, sometimes you can take a turn or 2 off of inking. You don't have to just keep inking every single turn. If you can get to 7, especially against like discard 2, if you get to 7, every card in your deck is live. So now all of a sudden, if you have no hand, that's okay, because you can play every card right off the top of your deck. And playing it with an empty hand can sometimes be pretty effective. 2 Finders Keepers felt perfectly fine. Sail the Azurite Sea 90% of the time, like I said, is going to be your go-to 2 play. So we'd want to definitely keep that in there. 4 Popsicle, 4 Friends, pretty standard there. And I played 3 Queen's Castle. Library's so not good. I've said it so many times. I mentioned on Discord once again, for people who play Library, how many times have you finished an event and said, man, Library won me so many games today? Personally, I've never felt that way. Not one single time have I been like, I won that game because of Library. pretty much every single event that I play Castle, there's like 2, 3, possibly more games where I'm like, Castle won me that game. In the finals, Castle won me game 2. Hands down was because of Castle. Top 4, both games, Castle just dog walked my opponent. I was able to get 3 characters there. I'm drawing 2 or 3 cards every turn. I'm answering his board. I'm shutting him down. He can't do anything to my castles. I'm not afraid of B prep because 1, my board presence is better, so let's go trade boards. And 2, I have double castle down, so what are you going to do? B prep me, and now I'm getting 4 lore per turn while you don't have much of a hand and I have multiple Hades in hand? Like, Castle just applied so much pressure. Amethyst Emerald, again, Castle put in so much work here to the point where Peter had exerted because Pan plus Diablo allows Diablo to rush into Castle, makes it exerted, and all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I'm going to draw for turn, get 2 from the castle, draw for turn. I'm not going to draw from the castle though, because I didn't want my opponent to get so many cards. I had to take away from my resource advantage because my opponent was going to get it, because that's how good this card is, and it just makes Diablo that much better too, that we had to get pretty interesting on our plays and our choices. And I bet you in my 7 rounds that were played, because obviously the one intentional draw, I easily drew 20 cards off of my castles today. Easily 20 cards were drawn off of my castles in those 7 matches. Like, this card put in so much work, and Half Shark can kill it. Yeah, you're right. It can, especially if they go like Peter Pan, Half Shark, and then rush their Half Shark into it and kill it, right? Should have played Manor or Library, except 7+2 still kills either one of them. So there's that. And you could say, well, if they already had Pan on board, now they can play their Shark. True, and you got to read your opponent and play it accordingly. You don't just throw cards down. And one of the other things I've seen is people are like, well, Crab plus Fox, that gets rid of your castle. 1, Crab's kind of falling out of favor, which, again, I strongly disagree with. And 2, if your opponent comes out with Crab on 3, don't play Castle on 4. You're asking for it. Doesn't make much sense. Control the board, gain the board, then start dropping your castles. Sometimes I didn't play Castle until I had 8 ink, and I'd just play 2 of them at once, or I'd play a Genie plus a Castle. Is you use your first 5-6 turns to establish the board control. You get your Iagos down, you get down your Pans, you get down these other characters, your Crabs. You take control, you stabilize the board, and then you start slapping castles down. And even if your opponent has kind of a board too, and you're in a stalemate where it's like, who's going to exert cards first? Who's going to get the party started? Well, I'm going to throw some castles down. I'm going to force you to start exerting your cards and doing something, and then I'm going to clean your board up when you try to do it. Castle was, if I had to pick one card today that was the best card, yeah, it was Castle. Like, not even close. Outside of Castle, I'd say probably Iago was the second best card of the day. Castle, Iago, probably 2 top cards of the day, but Castle was the MVP of the day, and it honestly was not even close. If you're looking for a location to play, Castle's here, Manor's here, and Library's not even on my radar. I'm not going to play Library, guys. Like, I know a lot of people like it. I've been biased against it for a long time, and that's not changing anytime soon. Actually, it probably will change sometime soon, because guess what? Manor and Castle are getting rotated out. So maybe I'll have to pick up the Library by default. But yeah, that's kind of how my experience went. A lot of fun. Really enjoy going to that store, All Access Card Shop in Green Bay. If you're ever up in the area, check them on out. We got a couple more events this weekend. I don't know what I'm going to play yet. I might play a hyper-aggressive version of Blurple. I might play Lemon Lime discard. I might just take Pirates and have some fun. We'll see. I'm not going to take this deck, though. I want to change it up and try something else. Let me know what you guys think down below. Again, don't forget our 6 or 6,200 subscriber giveaway, whatever one we can hit by September 5th. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below, and take care.